All right, you can go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will be presenting a presentation based on a chapter, Power and Influence. Our group consists of Risha Dipchan, Sue Ann Melville, and myself, Chelsea Mohan. Before we start, we would like to show a very short video based on power and influence.
It's different than leadership. It's more exact. It's more surgical. It's used in a measured manner. When you see it happening, most people can recognize it. To affect the behaviors, the actions, the thoughts, and the ideas of others.
You know it when you're surrounded by the right people because you see the benefits of those influences and you see how they impact your career and your personal life and how they take you to the next level.
The ability to influence or inspire people is probably the most critical factor of being an effective leader.
It's about relationships. That's the influence piece, and that's how leadership works, in my opinion. That's how you get things done.
How you handle certain situations, how you react in certain situations. People are watching those things. The higher up you go, the more people are watching.
If you don't display the behavior or display the passion, you're not going to have the ability to influence or inspire people to do the same.
The bottom line is you've got to nurture the relationships to have the influence.
You'll never know it all. You'll never see it all. You learn something new every day. But what you do bring to the table, the experience, you've got to share that with the younger firefighters.
They have to value what you're trying to impart, and they have to see the benefit to them as an individual or as a group.
If you don't have a relationship with your people and you can't influence them, you're not really leading anybody.
The more you surround yourself with the folks that are impacting the change in the organization, they're going to help you to be a better influencer as you move forward.
There's never a contract. There's never a verbal agreement. You're never made aware of who's watching you and what they're taking in.
We need to be more like tour guides and say, listen, come on a trip I've been on. Let me show you the past. Let me show you what you need to see. Let me show you what to steer away from.
When it's all said and done and the dust settles and a person comes back to you later on down the road and says, hey, you know, I couldn't have gotten through that without you. And I want you to know how much it meant to me that you stuck with me through that, or you were willing to work with me to get to where I'm at today.
So leadership, power, and influence. So basically, this is the difference between power and influence is that power gains compliance and obedience, while influence wins loyalty and trust. Leaders who possess the right mix of power and influence can be incredibly effective in motivating others to show them. Can we get the next slide, please? So transformation and charismatic leadership. So researchers have been particularly interested in charismatic and transformational leadership styles. Charismatic and transformational leaders rely on the leader's personal power rather than organizational authority. So transformational versus transactional leadership. So these are some points. So transformational leadership often has a significant impact on followers and has the potential to renew an entire organization. Comparing transformational leadership to transactional leadership can help you understand it better. The transactional leadership model is based on an exchange between leaders and followers. The transactional leadership recognizes his or her followers' needs and desires, and then explains how those needs and desires will be met in exchange for meeting specific objectives or performing certain duties. Thus, followers are rewarded for job performance, while leaders benefit from task completion. Transactional leaders prioritize the present and excel at keeping the organization running smoothly and efficiently. They excel at traditional engage management functions like planning and budgeting, and prioritizing impersonal aspects of job performance. Transactional leadership can be very effective. Clarifying expectations boosts followers' confidence. In addition, meeting the needs of subordinates can boost productivity and morale. Transactional leadership prioritizes maintaining organization stability over promoting change as it involves adhering to rules. Transactional skills are essential for all leaders in today's world. For constant change, effective leaders take a different approach to ensure organizational success. So, some transformational leadership overview are: transformational leadership is defined by the ability to effect significant change in both followers and the organization. So, transformational leaders can drive changes in an organization through vision, strategy, and culture, while also promoting innovation in products and technology. Rather than analyzing and controlling specific transactions with followers through rules, directions, and incentives. So, transformational leadership focused on intangible qualities such as vision, shared values, and ideas to build relationships. They give larger meaning to separate activities and provide common ground to enlist followers in the change process. Transformational leadership focuses on the leader's personal values, beliefs, and qualities rather than the exchange between leaders and followers. So these are some differences. So the first point consists of transformational leadership develops followers into leaders. So basically, this means transformational leadership fosters followers' freedom to control their behavior, unites them around a mission, and establish boundaries for working towards organization goals, raising awareness of problems and encouraging positive change. The second point is transformational leadership evaluate the concerns of followers. So transformational leaders prioritize individual growth and development, setting examples and assigning tasks to meet immediate needs while aligning followers still with the organization's mission, empowering them to drive change within the organization. My third point is transformational leadership inspires followers to go beyond their own self-interest for the good of the group. So this is where transformational leaders motivate their teams to exceed expectation. So leaders educate followers on the importance of change and goals and the outcomes basically. Empowering them to put the organization's mission ahead of personal interest. Followers admire, identify with, and put their trust into the leaders. Transformational leadership motivates people to give in the need for change and make personal sacrifices for the greater good, rather than simply following the leader personally. My fourth point is transformational leadership paints a vision of a desired future state and communicates it in a way that makes the pain of change worth the efforts. So a transformational leader primary responsibility, is to develop a new vision for the organization and inspire others to share it. As previously discussed, the vision motivates action and provides the foundation for transformational leadership. Effective change necessitates a strong sense of purpose and a vision for the organization future. Transformation cannot occur without a vision, basically. So, in conclusion of what all I have said, effective leaders can be both transformational and transactional. They can create a vision and inspire others while also designing structures, control systems, and reward systems to help achieve it. Mr. Mike, as seen in a picture of ops, exemplifies a combination of both leadership styles. So there's charismatic leadership now. Charismatic leaders are emotionally impactful individuals who inspire and motivate others. In simple terms, they often face overwhelming odds and are seen as persevering in their mission. Charisma is a fire that ignites followers' energy and commitment, producing results above and beyond duty. Charismatic leaders motivate others to go above and beyond, even in the face of obstacles and personal sacrifice. They persuade people to do things they rather not, leading to a rush of followers and personal sacrifice. For example, Lloyd Ward, the CEO of the United States Olympic Committee, was appointed to address internal strife and loss of public trust. His charisma, known for uniting and inspiring people, was believed to heal the organization's fractures and restore the US Olympic team to glory. When used wisely and ethically, charisma can evaluate the entire organization's performance, raising awareness about new possibilities and motivating individuals to prioritize the team, department, or organization. So, what makes a charismatic leader? So, research indicates that understanding charismatic leadership qualifies and and behaviors can enhance leadership abilities. Studies have identified charismatic leaders' impact on followers and their behaviors that enable exceptional outcomes, illustrated in this table below. So there are non-charismatic leaders and charismatic leaders, and some areas they more or less excel in. So charismatic leaders, a summary of this table is charismatic leaders inspire change by articulating and idealizing vision of a better future. They communicate complex ideas in clear, compelling ways, allowing everyone to understand and identify with their message. Their unwavering faith inspires followers even if it's not expressed in a specific goal. Charismatic leaders use unconventional methods to change the status and effect change, making them appealing even if they may appear out of place at times. So, what is the black hat of charisma? Charisma, a powerful leadership trait, can be both a blessing and a curse. So leaders like Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy, and Mohandas Gandhi, as well as Adolf Hitler, Charles Manson, and even Idi Amin, have exhibited charisma. However, it can also be used for personal gain, leading to deception, manipulation, and exploitation. Charisma's potential for negative outcomes depends on whether leaders are personalized or socialized. Personalized charismatic leaders are self-centered, non-egalitarian, and exploitative, while socialized leaders are empowering, supportive. Research shows that personalized charismatic leaders can negatively impact long-term organizational performance. Conversely, leaders who consistently improve performance demonstrate a pattern of socialized behavior. Therefore, charismatic leaders should be approached with caution and a balanced approach to ensure the well-being of their organization. Power, influence, and leadership. So, effective leadership involves the use of power and influence to achieve one's goals. Power is an intangible force within organizations that can be perceived as the ability of one person or department to persuade others to achieve desired outcomes. It is often defined as the ability to influence others to achieve desired outcomes for those with power. Politics and influence enable the realization of potential power. Influence is the impact of one person's actions on the attitudes, values, beliefs, or actions of others. So, power is the ability to change someone, while influence refers to the degree of change. For example, a child may have played a game they didn't want to play because one person persuaded others to do what they wanted. Similarly, a significant person in one's life may have changed their college major or shifted their beliefs about a social issue due to the influence of political or religious figures. So there are five bases of power. Um, so power, often a personal characteristic, is also influenced by an organization position. There are five types of leader power: legitimate, reward, coercive power. Um, these power types are determined by the organization's policies and procedures. However, position power and leadership are not the same. Effective leaders also have personal power, known as experts and referent power, based on their special knowledge or personal characteristics. So we'll be looking at legitimate power first. So this refers to the authority granted from a formal position of an organization, such as a supervisor. Subordinates understand their obligation to follow their direction and they comply. Former leaders have certain rights, responsibilities, and prerogatives, including setting goals, making decisions, and directing activities. Most North Americans accept this right. Um, there's reward power. So this is where leaders possess power to bestow rewards, such as pay increase or promotions to lower level followers. They control resources and their distribution, relying on them for financial and physical support. Leaders with reward power can use rewards to influence subordinates' behavior, demonstrating their authority in directing resources and ensuring that success of their team. There is cohesive power. So this is the opposite of reward power, referring to the authority to punish or recommend punishment. Supervisors have the power to fire or demote subordinates, criticize or withdraw pay increases. For instance, a salesman performance may be impacted by a sales manager coercive power, which is the negative side of legitimate and reward power. Now there is expert power. So this power refers to leaders' superior knowledge or skill in a task performed by their followers. So leaders at supervisory levels often have experience in the production process, leading to promotion. However, at top management levels, leaders may lack expert power due to subordinates' technical knowledge. An exception is Mr. Mike, mentioned previously, who has extensive knowledge in all aspects of the business. Experts within an organization can influence decision and withhold or disclose specialized information to achieve desired outcomes. And lastly, there is reference power. So this is a type of leadership influence that stems from a leader's personal characteristics, commanding followers, identification, respect, and admiration. It is particularly evident in charismatic leadership, where the leader's relationship with followers is intense and relies heavily on reference or expert power. This type of power is widely used by good leaders, as it often leads to strong identification and acceptance of their ideas and plans. So, the response to the use of power. Leaders use power to influence others to achieve organizational goals. So the success of this influence depends on the degree of power used. Three outcomes can result from power use are compliance, resistance, and commitments, seen as highlighted here. Compliance involves following the leader's directions, even if they don't agree. Resistance, on the other hand, occurs when the use of power exceeds legitimate levels, leading to employee avoiding or disobeying orders. And finally, commitments generated by personal power involves adopting the leader's viewpoints and enthusiastically following instructions. Leaders who rely solely on position power can struggle to achieve their goals. So in Exhibit 12.3, as seen here, this is a small diagram, showing the positional power, which consists of compliance and resistance. And on the other side is personal power, which is commitments. I would like to pass you on to my colleague to continue the presentation.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Risha, and I will be presenting on the follow-up from my colleague, Ms. Mohan. So in this picture here, we have Ms. Anu Shaklal. She was the founder and former CEO of Rubicon Soft. So like most leaders, she began thinking that the only way to get results is forcing her will on others and her employees, regardless if they wanted to do so or not. This was noted as compliance. However, she realized later on she got better results when she changed her approach and she made it in one that her employees are able to understand and embrace her ideas, which is noted to be commitment. This shows that commitment is better than compliance, as most of her colleagues followed her from her old company, Rubrik, to Rubicon Soft, and even invested in her company in future reference. Successful leadership is noted to be one where leaders can display both personal and position power. This can be backed from a direct quote from Ted Mehara, the vice president of Rubicon Soft, where he states that why he followed Ms. Shaklal after 3 companies and even invested in the new company as well, where he states, I want a leader who makes my own efforts easier, and Anu intellect, competitiveness, and great customer skills are very compelling. Characteristics that affect dependency and power in organization. Dependency is stated as when a person has control over something that others want and need, he or she gains power. An example of this can be when a star athlete or a high school quarterback graduating at a time when there are few excellent quarterbacks coming out of high school. Numerous colleges will try to vie for his or her interest and make increasingly attractive offers to entice that person to sign on their team. In reference to an organization where the role of dependency comes in, is those who have power over information, resources, jobs, and so forth tend to increase their power over those who have less than. Economic circumstances dictate the nature of dependency between the leaders and subordinates. For example, unemployment, increase or decrease in it, and a tight labor market. Basically, when unemployment is low and jobs are plentiful, people feel less dependent on their supervisors, and managers are more dependent on employees because they are hard to replace. Also, in a tight labor market, leaders have to gain and exercise personal power to a greater extent because employees would only often stay in a job where they admire and respect their leader, even if their opportunities are plentiful. Therefore, in a corporate/environmental organizational setting, dependency relates to a person's control over resources. Resources include, but not limited to, jobs, rewards, financial support, expertise, knowledge, materials, information, and time. Control over these resources are ranked in 3 ways: importance, scarcity, and non-substitutability. Basically, importance means resources that one has need to be perceived as important. If it is not wanted, it is not going to create dependency. Essentially, people in the organization must perceive the resource to be important. That is, if nobody wants what you've got, it's not going to create dependency. For example, chief information officers have gained tremendous amount of power in many organizations because of the critical role they play in the information technology for both businesses and non-profit organizations. Scarcity refers to resources in the sense that is it easy or difficult to obtain. Essentially, once a resource is more scarce, it would be considered more valuable and creates more dependency than one that is widely available. For example, in a Wall Street Journal written by Lauren LaCapra titled "Ireland Taps US to Fill Need for Skilled Workers," it states, in Ireland, for example, an influx of information technology and finance companies over the past 15 years have left top managers scrambling to find employees with skills and experience in these fields. Essentially, Irish engineers who once came to the US to get jobs now find themselves highly valued in their own country, and US technology and finance professionals are learning that companies in Ireland will gladly help them with the necessary work permits, visas, information on taxes and real estate and even moving there to sign on. The third way that can affect is non-substitutability. This essentially states that if there is no substitute, the leader or employee with this resource will have control and more power. This essentially comes usually in the form of knowledge and expertise. For example, an executive secretary that has daily access to the CEO might have more power when compared to a middle manager who must compete for a few minutes of the top leader's time.
What?
So now I would just be playing a short video to show what is the strategic contingency model.
Is the strategic contingency model. Well, this is a model that concerns the exertion of power and the conformity of others to that power. So to start with, dependency itself simply refers to the extent to which an individual is dependent upon an external factor to maintain their preferred state of being. Okay, so with that being said, the greater an individual's dependency upon whatever that factor is, whatever that external need is, the greater the power that factor has over them. So in summary, if you need something very badly, then that thing that you need has some level of influence or power over you. So thus, dependency results in a form of power derived from the ability to handle actual or potential organizational problems by virtue of distributing resources. So with that being said, in organizational behavior and for managers, the extent of dependency is defined by one of any of three factors. Scarcity, that is how much you need that internal factor that the manager or the organization controls. The importance of that factor to you. And then the substitutability, that is, where can you have your needs met elsewhere without depending as heavily on that factor. So to the extent that you can find a substitute. So in this way, the strategic contingency model relates an individual's influence over you, particularly an organization's influence over you, by their control over factors that you need, such as promotion, such as compensation, benefits, things of this nature. So this is the relation of the contingency or strategic contingency model to management practice and organizational behavior. What is?
So prior to this, we would have discussed the 5 types of power derived from either formal position or the leader's personal qualities. These are noted to be referent, legitimate, expert, cohesive, reward, and expert power. However, strategic contingencies theory states it identifies power sources not linked to the specific person or position, but to the role the leader plays in the overall functioning of the organization. So besides the 5 powers listed from the formal position and personal qualities, there are sources of powers additional to those. Those tend to be interdepartmental dependency, control over information, organizational centrality, and coping with uncertainty. Interdepartmental dependency refers to how information, material, and resources may flow in one direction between departments. For example, we should consider a case study written by Michelle Crozer in the Baratic Phenomenon, published in the University of Chicago Press. The case study follows a cigarette factory in Paris. One might expect that the production department would be more powerful than the maintenance department. However, this was not the case. The production of cigarettes was a routine process. The machinery was automated. On the other hand, maintenance department workers and their leaders were responsible for repairs of the automated machinery, which was a complete task, and they had many years of experience. Because the maintenance department had the ability to fix unpredictable assembly line breakdowns, production managers became dependent on maintenance, and maintenance leaders called the shots about machine repair and assembly line maintenance. So this shows that the leaders in the maintenance department would have the resources, so they have more power in this case. Second point is the control over information. Despite there's a trend towards empowerment and broader information sharing, the fact would remain that some people will almost always have more access to information when compared to others. Control over information, which involves both access to information and control over how and to whom it is distributed, is an important source of power for leaders. Consider this example. Jay Sidhu, a chief executive of Sylvan Bancroft for over more than 15 years. He has even negotiated 27 acquisitions that both transformed the troubled savings and loan into a major regional bank, as well as increased his own power over shareholders and board members. A lot of insiders say that Mr. J often withholds information from board or waits until the last minute to brief them in order to accomplish his objectives. Most leaders tend to recognize that information is a primary business resource, and that by controlling what information is collected, how it may be interpreted, and how it is shared, this can influence how decisions are made. To some extent, information may be determined by what position you have in the organization. Organizational centrality. Centrality reflects a leader's or department role in the primary activity of an organization. One measure of this is to the extent to which the work of the leader's department affects the final output of the organization. An example of this could be seen at the University of Illinois. This shows that when important resources come from research grants, this affects the quality of students and faculties. It is noted that departments that provide the most resources to the university are rated as having the most power, because the research grants contain a sizable overhead payment to university administrators. Coping with uncertainty. Environment tends to change swiftly, and this creates uncertainty and complexity for leaders, as generally little to no information is available for leaders. However, if leaders are able to show that they are able to cope well with this uncertainty, this can increase their power. Consider an example between HCA and Aetna Inc. At a point in time, insurers call all the shots. This forced hospitals to take lower reimbursements, forgo price increases, and discharge patients more quickly. HCA, based in Nashville, Tennessee, often said that it signed contracts that barely covered its costs. However, they were able to switch it around and become one of the largest hospital owners in the United States, and were able to even challenge some of the big insurer companies. This was done through HCA's legal departments. They were instrumental in absorbing critical uncertainties for the organization. An example of this was beginning in 1996, when a Medicare scandal surfaced. The legal department swung into action to help the organization weather the storm and develop clear guidelines to ensure that a similar legal problem will not happen again. Also, the department played a critical role in negotiating a series of mergers and acquisitions that enabled HCA to grow in size and power and turn the tables on big insurance such as Aetna Inc. Essentially, this shows that the legal department represents a critical part to the company, and they deal well with coping with uncertainty, causing them to have a large power. However, one thing to note, power relationship in organization change as strategic contingencies change. For example, if a hospital is dealing with a major health crisis, leaders in the public relations department might gain power by soothing public fears and keeping people informed about the hospital efforts to control the spread of disease. So this department may gain power over another department at this point in time. This is because strategic issues and uncertainties are continually changing for organizations, so therefore this leads to a shift in power relation. Departments that help organizations cope with new uncertainties will increase their power. Control over information or even coping with uncertainty isn't deemed enough. One effort must be important. This is how one can increase their power through political activity. Those who want to increase their power ensure their activities are visible and appreciated by others. Politics refer to activities to acquire, develop, and use power and other resources to obtain desired future outcome when there is uncertainty or disagreement about choices. Organizations are noted to use political activity or power to influence decisions that will be to their advantage. Leaders are able to increase their power in one of two ways: seeking greater responsibility or using impression management. Seeking greater responsibility comes in the form of serving on committees, volunteering for different projects, etc. This comes as a benefit as they would be able to make connections with powerful people in the organization and build their reputation among those people. Essentially, it comes as they are being perceived with friends in higher places. The second way is through impression management. This comes in the form of executive presence, subtle name dropping, flattery. This is where people seek to control how others perceive them. These tactics can give people a better impression of that person. They can appear to be perceptive, or they can appear to have high status. However, political behavior has a negative and a positive impact. It can be negative in the sense that if it is shown, or it can backfire on one if it is to be perceived as insincere, dishonest, or arrogant. However, politics is a great mechanism as it handles things that can't purely be handled through form or policies and position of power. One example of effective use of the political activity through impression management is through Mr. Steve Harrison. At his age, he was afraid that younger supervisors as well as subordinates might perceive him as behind the times. So not only does Mr. Harrison make sure others know that he keeps up with current business issues, but he also peppers his informal conversation with reference to his youthful hobbies of running and collecting electric guitars. Employees can also use impression management to not only leaders. You can use impression management, for example, by seeking feedback from leaders to create a favorable expression, or even trying to evade feedback in an attempt to avoid creating a negative impression. So before I wrap up, I'll just have one little activity I would like to do with you all. It's just one short question. So if anyone would like to answer, just let me know. It's what following strategies should a leader have to be effective? A, think politically. B, manage conflict. C, inflated self-importance. The answer options are 1, which are A and B, 2, A and C, 3, B only, 4, all of the above. What do you all think the answer is? All right. Anyone want to give it a chance or no?
There are 2 responses in the chat, both indicating that they like choice number 1.
Okay, thank you. So I wasn't able to see. All right, so yes, that is the correct answer. So in conclusion, from what I would have spoken about, besides personal and position power, there are other ways leaders can show their power besides those ways. So those are in the form of the control over resources and through the strategic contingency theory, which states the interdepartmental dependency, organization, centrality, coping with uncertainty, and the control of over information, as well as the use of political activity. So passing along to my colleague, Ms. Suan.
Not seeing anything on the screen. Okay. Tactics for asserting leader influence. How leaders implement decisions using their power, make change possible, and pursue organizational goals. Now, skills and willingness are necessary for a leader to influence others. There is social influence that deals with partnership, inspiration, and rewards. And then there are others influencing persons out of the organization or the organization as a whole. There comes a time when leaders have to choose wisely on the best approaches they use, knowing that they have power, as some power moves are rejected by followers. And using a combination of influence tactics is more likely to get people to do what the leader wants. Now we have 7 principles for asserting leader influence. 1, use rational persuasion. This is the most frequent used tactic, utilizing data, facts, and logical arguments to convince persons that in achieving goals and getting tasks done is possible by the ideas that are thrown out. 2, you can make people like you. Now, as it said, if you give respect, you get respect. It is never demanded. People in all cultures take a liking to friendliness and sincerity. So leaders, when they show their concerns for people around them, it displays trust and respect. When you treat them equally, it shows them that you have concern of their feelings, and this can gain the support and help them to do what you ask. So it is very considerate when leaders give praise where it is due. 3, rely on the rule of reciprocity. This is a sense of dependency, and there's an unwritten law of reciprocity, which means that leaders who do favors for others, they will expect a favor back. For example, this is where rational persuasion works, as other person goes along with the idea due to the benefits they see or they recognize. Making people like you is successful because the other person in return receives attention and praise as well. 4, you develop allies. In order to grow a network of allies, reciprocity must play its part. These are the ones involved who lend a helping hand to the leaders to achieve goals. Decision-making, change, or strategy, when being considered with the opinion of followers and other leaders outside of the firm, it shows the concerns and the understanding of them are trying to be met, as well as issues that are thrown out or arise at a solutions. It speaks a language for everyone. 5, ask for what you want. Now, if leaders aren't specific, they don't necessarily expect to get a feedback or to receive an end result. So they must be specific in what they are asking of. So without a clear vision, goal, and interest in change of leaders' activities, it cannot be effective as to getting a response from its organization. Persuasion can be used on others once the leader shows courage of assertiveness, and the decision-making helps to accomplish desired results and is sure to be favored over the ones that are not clearly defined. You have number 6, remember the principle of scarcity. Wanting more of what is not available to you are things that are a lot more prudent when it is unavailable, meaning it is more scarce. Therefore, if information gets out about a product being scarce, regards to time, quantity, or availability, the yearning to have it is a need. Now, this causes people to buy more of products, and as you give people the idea of having details beforehand, it grasps their attention, making them willingly give support to the leader. And then there's 7, extend formal authority with expertise and credibility. This final principle is the leader's legitimate authority in the organization, in which they can be extremely influential if they choose to do so. For an effective use of formal authority, one has to be of great knowledge, trustworthy, and they must be reliable. A leader who inspires skillfulness, honesty, and is straightforward with others can more likely apply exceptional influence. As a true leader would keep at the back of their minds that these 7 influence principles are very important. Ethical considerations in using power and politics. Now, according to Harry Truman, he once stated that leadership is being capable to get people to do what they want to do and like it. And this has caused a little bickering. So what is leadership? It is an opportunity to use power and influence to accomplish organizational goals. But this thing called power, it gets to people's head that, they become blinded and they intend to misuse and abuse it. Now take a look at the picture. And this picture shows, like in reality, people don't know their true power. This picture shows that this is how it really works and it's not the other way around. People let power get to their head. Let's consider the behavior of a supervisor, probably at a financial service company, and seeing the potential of this one specific worker. They despise them, how they are being praised and noticed for their great performance. Now, in a workplace, there's promotion. And around this time, this supervisor decides that they're going to come up with a strategy to probably get the head of the firm to grasp the attention that this person is not capable of what they are doing. And in a sense, they push it so much that they are bringing the organization into being, saying, if we don't deal with this matter at hand, it can cause us a lot, and not just us, but the company on a whole. Now, this colleague might not be in the lineup for being promoted. You will not get to see the potential because of this one person with their desires. So there's people in organizations using power and politics for their own gain and satisfaction, while others or the organization, they pay the price. Now, as we called earlier, we spoke about personalized versus socialized leaders. The personalized leaders' approach to the use of power, they are self-centered, impulsive, and they exercise power for their own selfish desires than of the organization. A socialized leader's approach to the use of power, now they exercise power in taking into consideration both the uplifting of others and the organization as a whole. So no one is left behind. The unethical use of power being a concern. Now in society, sexual harassment is a main area on the rise within an organization, because people depend on leaders and others for information, resources, teamwork, and even their jobs. And persons that don't have a choice but to depend on these people in power, they get personally violated. As to get resource, the sexual favors are offered to them. So sometimes they deliver, keep their promises, or probably in the end, they feel used and abused because probably they never even had the intentions of delivering. So policies are in the making amongst organizations for the safety of individuals from sexual harassment on the job. There are situations otherwise that might be unclear to a leader, hence they cannot tell the difference between ethical and unethical uses of power and politics. And I have a chart that sums up some criteria to guide ethical actions. So once a leader can answer all these questions, honestly, they can surely be an example whether an intended act is ethical or unethical. And the questions are, is the action consistent with the organization's goals rather than being motivated purely by self-interest? Does the action respect the rights of individuals and groups affected by it? Does the action meet the standards of fairness and equity? Would you wish others to behave in the same way if the action affected you? Now, all these lead to an ethical choice. The most important point for a leader, though situation within an organization isn't always easy to interpret, but one thing for a leader must be conscious. They must be conscious of the power that they have, and they must use it to the best of their ability, not just for their own selfish gain, but to benefit themselves and care for others. They should think of building long-term productive relationship amongst themselves so as to achieve goals and boost the organization. Summary and interpretation. Okay, so thus far from what you've heard, can you tell me what information you've gathered? Anyone? Okay, well, I'll just give a quick recap. This chapter basically covered how leaders use power and political action to get things done. As was mentioned, the leadership styles that have a strong impact on a leader's characteristics was the charismatic leaders and transformational. Right? The charismatic attract both the heart and the mind. Thus, they have an emotional impact. So although charisma can be dangerous, but it is beneficial to society and firms, it builds an environment of faith, hope. It paints a picture for future and makes way for change. For the transformational leaders, they too create an environment for change. They encourage their followers to go above and beyond selfish desires for the betterment of the entire organization. Power and politics are used by leaders so as to influence individuals and achieve goals. What is power? It's the potential to impact others into reaching desired outcomes. The types of power that are connected with a leader's personal qualities and position was also mentioned, which is legitimate, reward, expert, coercive, and referent. We had 3 distinct outcomes of power. Position power used productively mostly results in follower compliance. So that was compliance. The second one, the excessive use of position power, especially coercive power, can result in resistance. And the third one was follower responses, mostly lead by personal power, that's commitment. Power is a function of dependency, which connects to someone's control over resources. And dependency, it is significant for resources that are of extreme importance, short supply, and have no voluntary substitutes available. We have ways a leader can gain power. And this takes part in firms' purpose by control over information, coping with uncertainty, centrality, and interdepartmental dependencies. They are likely to gain power. Power is acquired, developed, and practiced through political activities. And as it was mentioned about the principles for asserting leader influence are through rational persuasion, liking and friendliness, reciprocity, developing allies, direct appeal, scarcity, and formal authority. Next slide.
This is the next slide.
Okay. So before I end, I just have 2 discussion questions I'd like to ask. Can you describe ways in which you might increase your personal power? Anybody? Okay, so I'll share my thoughts. Activating your personal power means recognizing your ability to impact the behavior of others. Now, regardless you hold a position of authority, you should treat everyone the same, because it could have been the other way around, them being in authority, and you will like them to treat you with respect and equally. Now, personal power comes from having self-awareness, confidence, and the ability to draw others in what your charisma or wisdom is. So you must learn how to develop your personal power to become a more effective leader and a better human being. In all this, it starts with self. It starts from within. Self-love, self-care, the way you interact with others. They say what is on the inside shows on the outside. And the last question, which of the 7 influence tactics would you be most comfortable with as a leader of a study group or a work team? And those tactics were rational persuasion, liking and friendliness, reciprocity, developing allies, direct appeal, scarcity, and formal authority. Now, for me, I would have chosen to stick with the liking and friendliness. I will give respect to gain respect, treat others fairly, as I would like them to do the same for me. Now, to conclude, this chapter looked at leadership, power, and influence, in which power deals with obedience and influence deals with trust. It went into detail of the use of power and political actions performed by leaders and spoke of the leadership styles and how they differ. Power and politics was clearly stated how well they work to influence others and achieve goals. Also, the effects from the use of position power when appropriately executed and what the end results are likely to be. Key aspects relating to power with regards to a function of dependency was explained, along with the wide variety of influence tactics leaders put to use as any other ethical leader would to assist in serving the organization's accomplishments. We thank you for being a part of our presentation, and if you feel the need to ask any questions, feel free to do so. Thank you.
All right, if there are no questions, I'll stop the recording.